Hey everybody, good afternoon from RV Falcor 2. Welcome back to Dive 722. We have shifted back closer towards the country, the continent, and we are now in the Corcovado Gulf, the southeastern portion of that. And we're back to doing shallower dives, so we're here about 192 meters currently. And you're watching a live camera feed from our remotely operated vehicle, Sebastian. I see we have some viewers popping in. Welcome. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And we will be continuing sampling with our VibraCore, which is the instrument that you see to the right of your screen. It's primarily designed to take sediment samples through various motors on the instrument that give it vibration, so it's able to sample more sandier samples. It's been in development for a couple of years, so we're really excited to be using it on this expedition. It's very new for us. Actually, a new video came out about that today on our YouTube channel. So if you would like to learn more about this expedition and the types of sampling we've been doing this week and last week, feel free to go check it out. And with me here in the control room today, I've got Zach and Scott as our pilots. We are just doing some Niskin bottles right now. That's why our camera is panning to the left.
2 more Niskins? Yes. Yeah, 2 more.
2 more, please. Yes, please.
So here are some custom 3D printed keys. And these enable us to fire Niskin bottles and see which ones actually work, because sometimes they fail. So that's pretty exciting.
Push cords, yes, please.
Straight into push cords. And behind me, I've got a very wide array and a very diverse team of scientists on board this expedition. We've been having a lot of fun learning together, representing many countries, many backgrounds, and many scientific interests as well. So very, very exciting. And today's watch lead is none other than Dr. Sebastian Watt, who is the chief scientist of this expedition from the UK. And he will be leading us through the next few hours of this dive, which is very exciting. And so, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to him. Off you go, Seb.
Great, many thanks, Sophia, and welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to southern Chile. It's great to have you joining us again on what is going to be one of the later dives in our expedition. Not quite sure how many will fit in, possibly one tomorrow, but the weather's not looking great, so we'll see what's possible tomorrow, and then after that we'll be heading back north up the coast of Chile to come back into port. So we're right at the final stage of our expedition here, and this is something new at this site, so quite interested to see what we recover here. We just had a lot of discussions this morning to sort of pick the dive site. There's so many options in this area. It's been pretty challenging to pick one. I'll give some explanation as to where we are and how we sort of made those decisions. So as Sophie was saying, we're back near the shoreline, and you can perhaps infer that from the water depth we're in, just around 200 meters here. And also the sort of visibility here is pretty murky, strong currents, lots of sediment moving. This reminds me a bit of some of the sites earlier in the cruise, particularly when we were offshore the Chaiten Delta. We're actually near some other volcanoes now, quite a bit further south. We're near 2 volcanoes called Yanteles and Melimoyu, which are among a series of sort of lesser known volcanoes in southern Chile, lesser known at least to anyone sort of outside the immediate region. They're actually very prominent mountains along the coast of this region, snow-capped volcanoes, pretty big volcanic structures, but this is an isolated, sparsely populated region, not well studied geologically, So the history of these volcanoes is not particularly well known, particularly Yanteles, in fact. It's thought Melimoyu's had a couple of eruptions in the last millennium. In fact, one of our geologists on board, Constanza, who is from Seneca Min, the Chilean Geological Survey, she would be best placed to tell you about Melimoyu. Maybe we'll see if we can get her in at some point on this dive.
Great.
Because she has worked in the region and is one of the few geologists, actually, I guess, who studied the volcano in detail. So we'll see if we can get her in to talk a bit about it. And I guess the reason for coming here is to sort of extend our insights and our overarching hypothesis for how we can use marine sedimentary records to understand volcanic activity in this part of Chile and the impacts of volcanism on the marine environment. So much of our expedition has been focused on the Chaiten 2008 eruption. We spent a lot of time offshore the river systems that drain the Chaiten volcano, and where we know there were large volumes of sediment that entered the marine environment. And we've been discovering for the first time how that sediment was dispersed, its marine characteristics, which might help us recognise other deposits of this type in marine geological records, and will also help us determine potential targets for deeper cores and longer volcanic histories. So we studied that at Chaiten. But right at the start of the cruise, we were in a fjord called the Ralankavi Fjord, and we selected that as a sort of counterpart data set offshore a volcano called Calbuco. And in a way, this site is something similar, but much further south. We've mapped overnight across the Gulf called the Corcovado Gulf, which is just offshore this area. And there's some spectacular layered sedimentary structures in the basins around here. There's some areas of higher ground, higher topography, buried by the sea now, which we think relates to the region being shaped by the last glaciation. Lots of interesting things to explore, and we struggled a bit to choose one dive site. I think this could be a study area in itself, but that's also part of the idea of work like this, in that it's partly exploratory, and the data we've collected in the last couple of nights, this core site will help us understand the potential for further work as well. So we selected this site partly because it's quite near the continent, so we're expecting it to show some volcanic influence. So if we do two more, please, Zach. Yeah, if we're doing biology as well. So from historical eruptions at Melimoyu, particularly those two events in the last millennium, we may expect to see the influence of those here. We're not far from the volcano at all. Certainly a similar distance to where our sites offshore Chaiten were from Chaiten volcano, so we're a similar sort of distance. So if materials came down the rivers draining Melimoyu and entered the marine environment, we would expect to see some evidence of that at this site. So that was partly the reason, and partly because this seemed to be quite an isolated basin with good stratification and several units that, from our interpretation, seem to preserve continuous layering up to the present day. So we think it's a good target to get a young sequence. And that isn't the case with some of the other areas that we've looked at, where it's evident there's some erosion or there's been periods of non-deposition. So although they would certainly have interesting sedimentary records and records that would allow us to go back in time, that would be a great target if we had time to recover several cores from several sites. But if we're only doing one dive, which is all we're doing today, then it might be quite challenging to interpret one sort of isolated sample if it was from an erosive environment. So that's our reasoning for coming here, and we'll see what we recover. These push cores are pretty grey in colour, as you can see as they come out, apart from that sort of brownish top part. There's a bit of a plume coming up in that one, a bit disturbed, but it could be good for a bulk sample.
That's number 6.
So after we finish this dive today, we're going to be heading back north through the Corcovado Gulf. Unfortunately, that coincides with some strong northerly winds coming in overnight, so that really might impede activities tomorrow and reduce inevitable if the swell is high, and So we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see how things work out tomorrow and what we can achieve in the next 24 hours. But that's a normal part of marine science like this, particularly when you get to more southerly or northerly latitudes, or in any area really subject to stormy conditions and changeable weather patterns. We've already had to modify plans a bit actually in terms of our overall route. So we decided a few days ago to come back inland in this final stage with the idea of avoiding the worst of the weather conditions, but it looks like they may still limit what we can do tomorrow, but we'll see. We'll see what things look like in the morning. So pretty speedy push core collection. For those who've been on these before, you'll be used to seeing these. And I think we've really got this down now, or rather I say we, the pilots have really got this down, and we've got Scott currently doing this. Got his 5th one, and I don't know how long that's taken, but not much more than 10 minutes I'd guess to get all 5. So we're expecting this to be quite a short dive today. Very little signs of biology at the minute down here, which again is a sort of interesting change from where we were yesterday.
LV, we are in position.
Copy that, thanks, sir.
If anyone joined the dive yesterday, we were in much deeper waters, 800 metres or so, on a structure called the Simpson Canyon, which is one of several canyons that drains off the continental slope. So we'll do the scoop bags actually, I think. Yeah, the scoop bags in the area we just done the push course, please. So these canyons sort of incise down into what we call the slope, which is the relatively steep bit of topography that marks the transition at the edge of the continental crust down towards the trench that marks the subduction zone. So southern Chile is on what we call a subduction zone, where we have one tectonic plate moving beneath another one, and the tectonic plate that's moving down is a denser plate carrying oceanic crust. So this oceanic, this plate, which is made up of oceanic crust and the underlying mantle, what we'd call oceanic lithosphere, descends beneath the continental plate in South America, and the descent of that plate gives rise to volcanism. It also causes large earthquakes and associated hazards. So this is why we see this range of hazards along the continental margin, such as southern Chile. Those similar hazards progress all the way up the coast of South America, through Central America, and so on, and actually right round much of the Pacific Rim, wherever we have subduction. So the continental slope marks the deepening seas down towards sort of true oceanic depths, and the Pacific Ocean. And these canyons drain that, and we were there yesterday to understand these sediment pathways down through these canyons. So we had a couple of interesting dive sites over 2 days, and varied biology, much more life actually, despite, I don't know, you might sort of think the deeper you get there might be less life, but there was a lot more to see in those dives yesterday than we're currently seeing here. This is really pretty shallow, but perhaps the high currents, perhaps other conditions meaning there's not a lot living on the seafloor. Now there might well be plenty in the sediment itself, and this is what the biologists behind me are going to be studying. So they're interested in the small-scale fauna living in these sediments. So we're collecting these 4 scoop bags to get a good volume of material that they can then sieve through to get a representative picture of the assemblage of life within these sediments. And they've done this at a whole series of sites through the project. So from that, they'll be able to get a sort of map of what is living in the shallow sediments at different water depths, in environments characterized by different currents, different types of input, volcanic input or a lack of volcanic input. And we'll get a comparison of how the sedimentary environment is influencing the conditions for life in this marine environment. And again, all of this is new information. We know very little about this region in terms of what we're studying. This is the first time there's been sort of a large-scale coring campaign of this type in the area. First time I'm aware of these sorts of ROV dives as well, which of course give us a lot of information about the biology because of the imagery that we can collect. And the first time we've got this sort of combined data set, which will be really valuable to understand the region. A combined data set of water samples, biological samples, sediment samples, and of course all our geophysical mapping data as well. So collectively this gives us quite a comprehensive picture of these environments. And we had a science meeting this morning, as we do regularly throughout the cruise, and we're now at the stage where we can present some of the results from that. So a couple of my colleagues on the ship, two postdoctoral researchers from the University of Malta, who are in the geophysics team. They presented some of the mapping work they've been doing and their interpretations of that, and it was really interesting to see the bigger scale structures, the sorts of things you won't be able to get an insight from the ROV camera, but that show on a larger scale what is shaping the seafloor. And there's all sorts of features indicative of sediment transport, of past processes such as the presence of ice sheets, of erosional processes that they can reveal in their geophysical mapping data. They're really sort of fascinating, visually appealing images. And then the interpretation, of course, is challenging but interesting as well, and will help us piece together a picture that will help us connect everything we're seeing on these ROV dives. So it's certainly a collective effort, and we have to draw on the work of all these different members of the team, from the biologists to the geophysicists, the oceanographers. You can't just take one of those pieces and understand the marine environment. So is this number 2, Zach? Number two. Cool.
Okay, number 2.
At 4, right?
2 out of 4, yes.
So given this is one of our later dives, I'm trying to work out if there's anyone you haven't heard from yet and who you should be hearing from. I don't know if Constanza's actually spoken on one of these, Becky. What do you think?
She has once, but she should talk again. She's
I don't know if
very
Monica or
excited
Sanai
about
have
this
either,
thing.
but yeah, I might nip out and see if they want to. Do you want me to pass to you for a little bit?
You want me to go fetch her?
I can. So in the room we've also got Diego, who you've heard from a few times.
Seminar.
Oh, it's the seminar now.
They're in the seminar.
Okay, that'll be why. Okay, you might have to apologies. You might have to put it with my voice for a bit longer. But I might pass to Diego for a little bit to talk about the marine biology of his work, and that'll be in Spanish. Diego is from the Universidad de Valparaiso, so I'll just pass to him briefly.
Diego Droguet, de Universidad de Valparaíso.
Gracias, Becky, por la introducción y Seb. Bueno, como ya me mencionaron, yo soy Diego Droguet de la Universidad de Valparaíso de Biología Marina, disculpen. Actualmente en mi último semestre ya redactando la tesis en los últimos meses. Bueno, para hablar un poco del trabajo que hemos hecho, yo soy parte del equipo de Biología Marina acá con mi compañero Gianluca Fedele de la misma universidad. Estamos a cargo de estudiar la macrofauna bentónica de los fondos blandos, de todo lo que se llama el bentos, el suelo marino. Y en este estudiamos tanto los sedimentos para estudiar su geoquímica, pero principalmente la biología que habita en estos, ya sean los organismos que se encuentran por sobre el sedimento, llamado epifauna, y los organismos que se encuentran por debajo de este, llamado infauna. Entonces lo que hacemos con ayuda de este robot Sebastián, como lo pueden ver en las imágenes, está usando unos sacos llamados scoop bag, lo que hace la función como de cucharear para sacar sedimento y después poder analizarlo ya acá en la superficie en el laboratorio a bordo del Falcon. Entonces, aquí a simple vista no se pueden ver muchos organismos. Bueno, justo ahora se puede ver un pequeño cangrejo caminando, pero aparte de esto no se puede ver mucha más diversidad de fauna. Pero lo que está enterrado dentro del sedimento es algo que es invisible quizás para nosotros aquí ante las cámaras o a simple vista, pero ya una vez acá arriba, estos sedimentos los tamizamos, usamos unos tamices, especie de coladores de distintos tamaños. Entonces todos los organismos invertebrados que vayan quedando aquí, nosotros los vamos seleccionando y después podemos verlo ya en una lupa con alta definición para poder llegar al nivel taxonómico más bajo posible. Esto quiere decir poder llegar a identificarlos como, primero desde lo más general a lo más específico, empezando por los phylums, el orden, clase, familia, género y en algunas ocasiones se puede llegar a esta especie. Pero este requiere un nivel de identificación taxonómica más avanzado. Bueno, y este es uno de los tantos inmersiones que hemos tenido la oportunidad de sacar muestras del fondo para nosotros. Este, de hecho, es el último, si no me equivoco. Y hemos tenido la oportunidad de ver una variada diversidad de fauna y de invertebrados. Lo principal que hemos observado y en lo que más nos especializamos son los poliquetos, que son los gusanos submarinos que se encuentran, la mayoría de estos, enterrados en el fondo, y la mayoría de estos son sedentarios. O sea, quiere decir que ellos reciben el alimento que les caen o del sedimento que está alrededor suyo. Pero también se encuentran algunos otros que son errantes o móviles, ya que se movilizan o nadan incluso, y son ya más cazadores y carnívoros. Bueno, y aparte de esto, hemos tenido la sorpresa de encontrarnos con harta variedad de crustáceos, principalmente estomatópodos, que son los llamados camarones mantis, que son, de hecho, tienen la particularidad de tener el golpe de puño más fuerte del todo el reino animal. Entonces estos son unos depredadores muy voraces y muy particulares que tenemos aquí en esta zona cercana a la isla de Chiloé. También podemos encontrar algunas especies de moluscos como gastrópodos o caracoles y bivalvos tales como almejas o algo por el estilo. También hemos podido encontrar una alta variedad de equinodermos, desde erizos irregulares, holoturios o pepinos de mar. También hemos encontrado estrellas de mar y ofiuros. Lo que nos llamó harto la atención fue una vez haber encontrado una estrella canasta, que es un ofiuro de gran tamaño, voraz depredador, que tiene la capacidad de poder abrazar a sus presas. También hemos podido encontrar ciertos animales muy pequeños, invertebrados, llamados ostrácodos, que solo pueden verse a la lupa. Y bueno, mientras trato de recordar, podría decir que estuvimos ayer y antes de ayer en el cañón submarino Simpson, que es un sitio de alta profundidad cercano, bueno, no tan cercano, pero al suroeste de la isla Guafo, en la que pudimos sacar algunas muestras a más de 3.500 metros de profundidad, y ayer a más de 800 metros de profundidad, que también pudimos encontrar pudimos ver ecosistemas coralinos, con ciertos corales de agua fría. Entonces este tenía una diversidad, una alta riqueza de diversidad de invertebrados que nosotros al menos no teníamos mucho conocimiento, que se veían muchas especies de equinodermos distintos, y que pudimos sacar algunas muestras y traerlas acá a superficie. Entonces con esto esperamos poder después, ya una vez que llevemos nuestras muestras al laboratorio de ventología de la Universidad del Paraíso, poder examinarlas más de cerca, más detalladamente, y poder llegar quizás a un análisis taxonómico más detallado.
Is it possible to scoop a little farther out from here or maxed out?
See what my picture looks like. I think that's the only
Yeah,
spot.
that's good. We'll take it.
Tell the audience about how you've been helping
the other teams as well within marine biology on sieving for the really, really, really tiny stuff.
Ah, yeah. Of course. Bueno, aquí también voy a mencionar un poco de la ayuda que le he brindado. O sea, en realidad que no me brindaste todo, pero yo específicamente también he tenido la oportunidad de ayudar al equipo, a la otra parte del equipo de biología marina, que son los encargados de analizar diatomeas.
¿Sí?
Diatomeas que forman el fitoplancton, que es la base de la trama trófica, de la cadena alimenticia. Estos organismos se encuentran nadando en aguas más superficiales. Son llamados también algas marinas, o sea, microalgas digo, porque son especies que realizan fotosíntesis para obtener su energía y brindarle alimentos al zooplancton, que son los principales consumidores de estas especies. Y luego estos pueden alimentar a animales más grandes. Después pueden llegar a peces y otras especies ya para llegar hasta el final de la trama trófica. Entonces estos organismos son muy importantes para nosotros. Es algo esencial poder reconocerlos, poder saber la abundancia, la diversidad de estas especies que hay. Y aparte de esto, de la diatomea también el equipo ha estado investigando, analizando foraminíferos, que son especies que no son del reino animal, no son animales, estos pertenecen al reino protista. Entonces, esta especie nos sirven para conocer un poco de la historia pasada del sedimento marino
Sí, sí.
y poder ya reconstruir la historia de la sedimentología. Entonces yo he tenido la oportunidad de tamizar también estas muestras para obtener foraminíferos. Esto después, muestras se llevan a secar a un horno, en donde después un proceso un poco nuevo para mí, un poco complejo, se puede llegar a obtener muestras secas de sedimento para poder observar de mejor manera los foraminíferos que se encuentran. Y han encontrado igual varias especies sorprendentes.
Inglés.
You have find some new species,
I don't know that we found new species,
but
but we,
have you been surprised about the species? Have you found?
yes, there's been some surprises. We have a lot of diversity in the benthic forams in the canyon, and I think that maybe they are reworked from upslope down the slope.
And have you studied the forams in the canyon yet?
Yeah, that's what we just started.
And that,
looking at the ones in the canyon.
that was where you find the Bart Simpson. How was the name? I just remember Bart
Yeah.
Simpson. No.
Yeah, so there's a forum that looks like Bart Simpson because it has this kind of spiky, spiny
Yep.
bottom to it. But if you were to flip it upside down, it looks like his hair. But that's Bulumina inflata, and that's very typical of the region here in southern Chile. There were other publications, I think from Romic, that actually we were looking at and comparing. And so, yeah, that was just one of the many benthic forams that we saw. Look at this. Look how deep and easily the core. Any resistance?
Oh gosh.
Oh,
Chicken.
pinch poke, you owe me a Coke. That's what we say.
Bueno, la doctora Rebeca Totten de la Universidad de Alabama, ella se especializa en foraminíferos, en estas especies del ventos del fondo marino. Entonces nos ha hablado un poco de las especies que ha estado encontrando, que decía que hay una que se parece a Bart Simpson porque tiene como espículas, o sea, tiene el pelo así como Bart Simpson, no sé cómo escribirlo. Bueno, esto ha sido igual muy interesante para mí poder aprender un poco más y espero en estos últimos días poder aprender lo más que pueda.
Yes.
Igual ahora, now our work, we're gonna stop a little
Mhm.
because this is our last dive.
We don't know if it's the very last dive.
Ah, no.
I'm not throwing out the possibilities. That's above my pay grade. But we are hoping to get gravity course.
Gravity course.
Super long
Ah.
course. Yeah. I shouldn't say super long. Relatively long course. As somebody who's worked with like hundreds of feet of drill core, it's not super long. It's longer. Yeah.
Bueno, tal vez no tenga la información correcta, no sé si la última inversión. Bueno, en las imágenes pueden ver ahora una herramienta, un instrumento llamado vibrocoder, que se entierra en el sedimento y que con la ayuda del robot hace una especie de vibración para que pueda poder penetrar de mayor manera en el fondo y poder sacar una mayor cantidad de sedimento, y esta es analizada acá en el buque por los geólogos que se encuentran trabajando en este equipo.
Yeah, we definitely want to go back to a site where we had really obvious ash layers, which was north of the Rias Delta. We're hoping to get some gravity cores there.
We're
maybe tomorrow.
coming back to the area tomorrow or today.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow is not the bad weather.
It's gonna get bad. That's
But
why
it-
we're going back to shallow,
But
protected areas.
at this area will be less risk.
Yes, we hope.
Ah.
Knock on wood. Otherwise, yeah.
What was the name the area?
Rias.
Rias Delta.
Mhm.
Bueno, estaban diciendo que mañana volveremos a una de las partes donde ya habíamos sacado algunas muestras, donde hay evidencia de sedimento ya de origen volcánico, de cenizas o tefra, en el delta Rayas, el norte de acá de donde estamos, el norte de Bahía TikTok. Entonces mañana probablemente haya otra inversión, por lo que me dicen.
I agree with that. Heard that.
Sí,
Alan.
estoy de acuerdo con Alan, que dice, en vez de gastar
Yeah.
dinero en hacer expediciones en Marte, deberíamos invertir más en conocer lo que hay de nuestra Tierra, que todavía hay mucho por conocer, el mar es un territorio muy desconocido, se sabe muy poca parte, entonces todavía es mucho lo que podíamos aprender y conocer lo que puede servir para la humanidad y para los ecosistemas marinos, por supuesto, para poder ayudar a preservar, a conservar estos ecosistemas.
Gracias, Diego.
Gracias, Vicky.
Really, he was explaining a lot of different things. I don't know if you caught that, but I made him talk about microfossils too.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Diego.
It's really nice. Good job.
So yeah, a lot of the
Doing my
students
best.
who are on board the ship with us here, they've been experiencing the full range of the workflow, I guess. So although Diego's principally here as a marine biologist, he's been taking opportunities to learn about the geological sample processing, the micropaleontology work. And it's true of the other students here. We've also got in the room Amalia from Universidad de Chile, and Mane, who's just started her PhD at the University of Alabama. Who and they've been working right across the various activities we're doing on board. So they're in here now logging. They've been processing cores. They've been working in the main labs with the samples and the core description. And even working with the geophysics team and getting some experience with that. So it's a great opportunity for so many of the students on the team to learn about new ways of doing science, to learn about marine science. For many of them, this is their first research cruise, and it's been really good to have such a mix of career stages on the team, as well as a mix of sort of disciplines and nationalities.
Yeah, so Diego and Amalia are undergraduate students. They've been doing a lot of research as undergrads, which is just really great. It's kind of unique, actually. They're some of our best and brightest students who are working on this research. And then, of course, Mane, like Seb just said, is working on her PhD at UA. And we have like a whole range of students, master's and PhD, and postdocs as well, right, Seb? So we've got, let's count how many postdocs. We've got a postdoc from UVA, Natalia Varela.
We've got Alistair from the UK.
Alistair.
Ivan from Italy.
Ivan from Roma. Sine.
We got
Monica.
Sinai and Monica from University of Malta. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Matilda.
Matilda, I guess.
She's not really a postdoc. She's a researcher, in a permanent position, I believe, at OGS. Yeah, so we've got a really good group of different career stages.
Then we got our two Seneca Min geologists as well.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes.
who are professional geologists and working for the Geological Survey in Chile.
Yeah, and they've been very helpful on this expedition and recognizing different tephras from how they look on land, along with Seb's group. It's just been a really great interdisciplinary team. I've been learning a lot about tephras.
So after this, then we're doing another black.
If we could do another one, if we can move slightly, please, Zach, and and then do another one.
And then that's it.
And then I think that's it. Yes, I don't think we're going to do a transect. I don't think we'll see a lot for a start, and we're not expecting a lot of local variety. We'd have to move a couple of kilometres, I think, to get into something that looks different in sub-bottom data. So I think that'll be it. So for those of you watching this who haven't seen these before, we've just collected a first vibra core of the dive, which are these aluminium tubes that go in and attach to this black rack on the front of the ROV, and that then inserts the core tube into the sediment. It can use vibration to ease the passage of that core. The idea is this can go into a variety of sediment grain sizes, and including sands, and also sort of collect those cores in as undisturbed a way as possible, so with complete stratigraphy. So we've been using this as a really key tool throughout the project. We've had great success, I think, with all of this. We've had several cores over 1.5 meters, at many sites over a meter, and we've been opening quite a few of these on board. That's why we're taking these duplicates, so we can open one and archive one, and the archive one we can then look at in the lab at a later date with various core scanning techniques and so on. But the ones we open on board have also been really instructive in terms of planning future sites and understanding what we're getting. And we're seeing a whole range of sediments in these. Quite a lot of variety across the various sites. We've had a few that don't look visually very variable, but that in itself is interesting in terms of what is or isn't reaching these different environments. We've had plenty with volcanic layers in there. The pale grey volcanic layers from Chaiten are particularly recognisable. Yesterday and the day before, the cores have got several dark sand layers in there, which were likely deposited by what we call turbidity currents, which are flows of sediment that move along the seabed, turbulent flows that deposit sediment as they move downstream, downslope. And so that these deposits can tell us something about what material is being transported, where that's sourced from, but they can also, if we can understand their age, they might tell us something about when these were triggered. Even, these have been investigated for the processes that might have triggered these failures that generated turbidites. So lots of interesting things that we've been finding in the cores. And as I said earlier, this is a new site, quite different from the other areas. A bit of a pilot site, really, I suppose, to understand if further study in this particular area would be productive to extend the volcanic histories of these nearby volcanoes, the volcanoes of Melimoyu and Yanteles.
I guess we're not going to move too far.
And these are really unknown regions, I think. So Melimoyu has 2 recognised eruptions. I was just looking on the Smithsonian Volcanoes of the World website, which is a key resource as a volcanologist. Volcanologists often use this site as a sort of international archive of known volcanic events. So it's a useful resource to look at any volcano and understand what's known about its eruptive history. And Melimoyu just has 2 recognised eruptions, neither of which have historical descriptions, even though they're quite young. So their precise age is not that well known, but one thought to be around 200 years ago. So young eruptions, and it's quite, it's quite striking in a way that a volcano that has erupted in the relatively recent past is so little known. As I mentioned, Constanza Perales, who's on board, is probably one of the people who's best placed to tell us about Melimoyu volcano. So she's just in a seminar at the minute, but she may be able to come down and talk to us about that. And then Yanteles volcano, which is the adjacent one, is even more poorly known, if anything. So there are large, likely sort of active volcanoes in terms of their sort of future active potential. In South America, in southern Chile, which still, have very little known about their past activity, and that's true in many parts of the world as well. As someone has commented about sort of spending money on going to Mars or more expeditions in environments like this, it's true that in many parts of the world we know very, very little, not just about the seafloor actually, but even about the terrestrial records of things like volcanic processes. And these past records are really key to us as geologists in terms of understanding future activity, in terms of deciding on strategies for things like hazard monitoring and planning. So there's all sorts of information we can learn by understanding about events that have taken place in the past. These vibricores at this site are going in really, really easily. It's quite a contrast to yesterday, actually, where we really had to sort of vibrate a lot just to get in a few tens of centimetres even. Sort of quite stiff clays with interbedded sands yesterday. I'm guessing these will be much less consolidated muds. Which is why these are going in so easily, but hopefully there's some sort of interesting intervening layers as well. Even if there aren't, that'll be an interesting observation given how near we are to land at this site.
So one of the things that I'm noticing here that we're logging in the back here is that this is basically barren. I'm not seeing very much in the way of life. The first thing that we've seen here is really that sea star that's just in that's the second sea star. Oh, and we saw one crab. We've seen one crab and one sea star. Oh, very little resistance as this is going in. Wow. But there's little holes there. Yeah, so those are homes for little critters that live in the sediment. And with this strong current here, you can imagine why you might want to live in the sediment instead of on the surface. There's nothing really to affix yourself to with this loose sediment here. So this is very interesting and kind of bit of an end member in comparison to some of the other sites that we've seen thus far.
Yeah, I think mapping out the life on the seafloor across all these sites will be quite insightful to look back at.
Mm-hmm.
To understand the diversity and across these water depths, across these different current conditions and so on. This one does seem particularly barren.
Yeah. And another thing that we've been keeping track of, in addition to the water depth and the sediment characteristics, or what we call the substrate of the seabed, is the temperature, the salinity, and how oxygenated it is here on the water bottom. And it looks like this is a lot higher temperature than what we saw yesterday in the Simpson Canyon.
What are we at?
10 degrees C.
10 degrees, yeah. Yeah, we were
like
one, we were at 1.7.
1.7 degrees C yesterday. We're in lower salinities, which makes sense. We're closer to the continent here. We've got a lot of rivers that contribute to the water in this Gulf and mix, and so this lower salinity kind of makes sense. It may also be contributed from Antarctic bottom water coming from the south, from Antarctica up to Chile, and mixing with the coastal system here. And then the oxygen saturation, I would say, so this is 58% here. My recollection, and we'll have to go back because we took notes on each one of these sites, other sites farther north that were in similar water depths between like 100 and 200 meters had much higher saturation than this site does. They were sometimes in the 90s. So this is a little bit lower oxygen saturation, and that might also explain some of the different characteristics of the benthic assemblages that we see on the seabed here. It's not quite as rich or diverse or abundant as we've seen in other shallow sites. And this might be a function of being more in the Corcovado Gulf area and farther south with different water masses, like we were saying, really high current velocity here at the seabed versus some of the more protected inland sites where we were a few days ago. Would you agree with that, Seb?
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges I think is the sort of small scale of spatial variability across this region. When you look at it on a zoomed out map, it looks like we've got loads of sites close together, particularly around Chai-ten, but even they're several kilometers apart. And there's a lot of change even over those length scales. So it's quite a challenge to piece together everything we're seeing from all these sampling sites. And this is where the geophysical data is key, actually, because that gives us a grid of data sets, a grid of transects. Yeah, all good. I think we're done.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Right. So
No resistance.
That was a short one. And
Or I hope a long one.
Well, a long call,
Long
short
core,
dive.
short dive.
How much do you think the recovery loss for this one?
I would say this is like 1.7.
Yeah, about as full as they can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Full penetration. Yeah, 1.7, 1.8. Yeah.
Okay, we can hang out here.
Yeah, I will keep you updated. We are picking it from deck now.
Okay.
Oh, are they doing the? Okay, so we've got a few more minutes on the seabed here before the ROV is going to be ascending. Not much biology to see. A lot of mud on the seabed that we've kicked up from the coring.
We're not seeing any of that, the sort of swarms of krill here either.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's surprising. Because at a lot of previous dives, as soon as we sort of disturbed the sediment, we were getting these, swarms of krill coming in, attracted by all the detritus that we'd kicked up. I don't know, are they just not here, Becky? Or
I don't know.
they are still hanging around near Chai-ten?
But unfortunately, that means no whales either.
Unless they've eaten them
Boo.
all. Yeah.
Of course, the timing that whales normally come into this area is like in November. The blue whales, right?
Yeah.
And they're really famous in this area.
I'm not sure if yes, blue whale. There are many whales.
Mm.
And
The humpback
ballena
whales.
fin, ballena sei, ballena jorobada, humpback whales, yeah.
Ballena is how you say whale in español. Ballena.
Ballena.
Están ballenas azul. ¿Azules?
Azul.
Azul.
La ballena azul.
Sí.
La ballena.
Las ballenas azul.
Yeah.
Like baleen.
Huh?
Like baleen whales.
Yeah, like baleen.
Ballenas, yeah.
But I think it's so pretty. It sounds like ballerina. Balena. So that's how you say it in Italian. But ballena, right?
In Italian?
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Balena.
Ballena.
Yeah. Oh, somebody's here from Louisiana. Hello. Yeah, I've been missing the krill swarms because they remind me of crawfish boils. Little crustaceans. A lot smaller than crawfish, though. We've been having a lot of good food on board. We're very spoiled.
Yesterday was 18 September,
Mm-hmm.
Chilean Independence Day. It's a big national celebration in Chile. So
Yeah.
that was good fun. Good food, music.
Good music.
dancing.
Diego was playing guitar. It was so cool.
Did you like our performance?
Yeah, I loved it. I took videos. We were all dancing, and the songs that you and Danny played for everyone at first, like the folk songs,
Yeah.
the sort of traditional folk
Traditional folk
songs
songs, yeah.
of Chile. That was the most special part for me. I really enjoyed that.
I enjoyed that too.
Yeah.
Danny is a really good singer.
Mhm.
I like her voice.
Yeah. Yeah, Danny is the teacher that we have on board from the island Chuit. And she teaches a very small school there, and she also helps with other schools in the islands in the region. And she's been teaching us on board a lot about the local history, the culture, the mythology. That's probably my favorite part of this area. So it's very special yesterday. And we ate sopapillas. Is that where you were going with that, Seb? We ate sopapillas.
Yeah, we had
to our heart's content.
Pastel de chocolate.
Pastel de chocolate.
Mm.
Corn pie.
Yeah,
Pastel de
It's
chocolate
good.
was
Yeah,
it's good.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Carmina, who's our Showa observer, she brought dulce de leche. She used to be a chef baker.
Sure, you can.
She's a chef.
Mhm.
She's a chef.
Yeah, she's really interesting. She's an oceanographer, and she can cook like nobody I know.
It's going to be a little bit because they're doing something with a bulwark out there. So we can just kind of get to where we are ready and then just wait if you want, you know?
Just to be clear, we haven't seen any blue whales. We're just saying how much we love them. But we did see humpback whales the other day.
Well, you did, Becky. I didn't.
Yeah, Diego and I did.
Yeah.
And then Mane and Jacob did, because they were upstairs taking their
I'm
class.
really feeling left out.
Yeah, sorry.
Only one way to find out.
There's chili chocolate being passed around. Not Chilean chocolate, chili as in the red pepper. Get a little kick in the afternoon.
Who brought that chocolate?
Scotty.
Cookies.
One, two, one, two.
Just a little bit.
What chocolate is?
Spicy. Are you regretting trying
Really
it?
spicy?
I'm enjoying about
There's chili in it.
She eats it.
It's not that hot.
That's not chili. Ooh, yeah.
You taste the chili now?
That is spicy.
It's not getting me at all. It's not spicy.
And yes, I can taste it. Taste it.
Is there something wrong with me? It's because I'm from Louisiana.
No sabía. Bueno, basta que me
A bit more.
It's good. My Canadian confirmed for me that it's not that spicy.
10 minutes more, copy.
There's the mix.
Hey, you know, if you want, I will see if
You
you
can
can.
sign it. You can sign it. Do you want me to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
here, we used to know that.
We can carry on.
Yes.
If you want.
We'll just stand by underneath.
Yeah.
Zach, you got views out here if you want.
You got what?
Hey everybody.
From the bulwark.
We are heading back up Just got a little bit less than 100 meters left. Hopefully we can get in another dive tomorrow, weather depending, so fingers crossed. If we don't see you tomorrow, thank you all for a wonderful expedition, but I'm hoping we will see you again tomorrow. And stay tuned for more video expedition updates, on our social media at Schmidt Ocean, on all of them. Also, the expedition has a social media channel called Fire and Ice Project .cl. So on Instagram, YouTube. They also have a TikTok, I believe. And yes, so thank you all for a wonderful but short dive. We've got a really nice core today, and so I'm super excited to see what the scientists will find. So it's going to be a little bit of a mad afternoon as we continue our samples up in the lab. But as always, appreciate you all joining us. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow. All right, take care.